Gather everybody, I'm not going to use a mic today. I got a big Brooklyn, New York mouth. So, and if you don't mind, yeah, because I give handouts, as I told the gentleman from the TV station. I don't do any PowerPoints or anything like that. I'm not smart enough. I actually work with paper. So, and then I'll take all the paper back for another program also. This way I'm not burning up more of the Amazon forest. All right? So this is a genuine Brooklyn, New York accent. Everybody, I kept you guessing, but pretty much everybody recognized Norman Rockwell. And the reason why I put this up there is we'll probably begin and end with Norman Rockwell. I work at the Skyline Nursing Home. I do a lot of programs there. And one of the things, I had a lady who lived on memory care, and her son taught 40 years at UW, art history. And I knew the answer, but I had to ask him. I said, Richard, do you get to teach Norman Rockwell? He goes, 5 minutes. Because he's not given credibility. And I said, that's really a shame. And over the years, I used Norman Rockwell to teach us to read paintings. All we read in school were letters and words. We never learned how to read pictures. And like I told my daughter one day when she was 5, we were watching Charlie Chaplin. She totally got him. And she was laughing at the right places. And I go, Lydia, when you grow up, put your hands like this and do this. And everybody will think you're brilliant. Okay? Most people are intimidated. My father never visited the Metropolitan Museum of Art till he was my age. Okay, and the reason why, he didn't think he was smart enough. And that's part of, unfortunately, the elitism that sometimes gets communicated in the art world. All right? So with that, let's do this. This is called Amazing Grace by Norman Rockwell. I gotta have audience participation. All right? So let's read his painting, and then we'll look at Michelangelo and Da Vinci. Okay? So, what do we see? Anybody? The characters, indoors, outdoors.
Indoors at a cafe.
Indoors at a cafe, most likely with Norman, a small town restaurant, right? Okay. Who are the people?
An older woman and a child are praying.
Okay, older grandma. And who's the young boy? If that's grandma. The grandson. Okay. Remember the days when if a restaurant was crowded in a small town, you were asked to just share a table? Okay? Norman Rockwell is doing that. These boys are not family. But Norman has them almost stop smoking, and they're staring at grandma and the grandson. Why? They're praying. Okay? So this is actually Norman Rockwell's religious painting. Okay? He's not going to do Da Vinci. He's not going to do Michelangelo. He's going to do his own contemporary religious painting. First, freedom of religion, celebrating the country he lives in. Now let's look at the religious aspect of it. So they're praying. What day is it?
Weekday.
What day? Monday, Saturday?
She has a hat on, maybe it's Sunday.
It's Sunday.
Oh.
Grandson's got the white shirt, the black pants, right? Grandma looks all spiffy, right? It's Sunday. They came from church. Okay? Over here, we have nothing is by accident. And if there is an accident, the great artists use it. Okay? What do you see here? Is it dark or light? Light. Okay? Light is usually associated with the Spirit of the Lord coming through. So in the darkness, and the colors are reminiscent of Rembrandt. Rembrandt had Brown's palette. He was a hero to Norman Rockwell. All right? So we get a lot of light. Why did Norman put a lot of light there?
Because there's darkness in the rest of it.
There's darkness. Also, Christ said, anywhere is church. And so he's got grandma and the grandson praying, right? And he's got the light here, okay? So we're going to go through this because we have a lot to see. Let's look in the front here, the foreground. Is that a clean table or a dirty table? It's a dirty table, okay? The reason it's a dirty table is not an accident either. Norman Rockwell wants to point out, here is this beautiful spiritual moment. And yet, everything else is just going on as usual. Not only that, he makes sure that this is really a filthy table that hasn't been bussed yet. Juxtaposition. If I do this, it's boring. If I do this, it's a little interesting. Juxtaposition in art. Okay? The second thing is I want you to notice, do you see the complete figure? You see parts of them. And the reason for that is if Norman puts a full figure here and a full figure there as human beings, every one of us, male, female, you are not going to go beyond the borders. By doing this, your imagination already presented a restaurant in your head. Okay? Does everybody get that? All right. So, and now we'll go on to talk more about Norman Rockwell. No, I'm only kidding. Everybody was freaking out. It's good to keep you guessing, man. All right, let's go to probably my favorite artist is Michelangelo. So, you get handouts. If you want to keep it, you keep it. If not, I'll take it back. All right, I'll wait till everybody gets a copy, just pass them around, and then leave it on a chair, whatever extras we have. Okay. I've looked at this. I was probably about 12 years old. I used to travel on my own from Brooklyn to Manhattan. I had my own kids. They're lucky they went out of the driveway on their own. My parents let me go on buses and trains, and I would run to all the New York City museums on their free days. And it was only in the last 5-10 years that I said to myself, they must have been very disappointed when I made it back from the museums, you know. Who lets 12 years old riding, you know? But thank God they did, okay? Michelangelo, this is the Pieta. I've been fortunate enough to see it twice. But anyway, let's talk at it. If I met Michelangelo and he was sitting here, I'd walk over and smack him. He is 21 years old when he did this. 21 years old. Okay? So let's look. Who is it? Let's look at what we just learned from Norman Rockwell. Read a work. Who do we see in the picture?
Mary.
Mary. And?
Jesus.
And Jesus. Okay. Couple of things now. Let's look at Mary. Is she young or old? Very young, right? Is her son young or over 30? She should look a little older, right? Michelangelo does that on purpose. She's the Virgin Mary. The key thing with the Renaissance, okay, the other thing we don't learn is all over Europe there's a Renaissance. It's not just in Italy. Okay, unfortunately, we only learn about Italy, but it's everywhere. Okay? But let's get back. Michelangelo's a scholar. He's a devout Catholic. He's a poet. He's a brilliant, brilliant man. He might wear the same clothes all week. He may not take a shower for 2 weeks. Totally consumed by art. Total opposite of Da Vinci. Michelangelo was into completion. Okay? Michelangelo had long black stringy hair, walked around in usually black clothes, His nose was broken from a fight. He looked like a boxer. Okay? Anyway, he's young here. He's 21. He's got the Virgin Mary looking like she's 20. He said, my Christ is only sleeping. He's not dead. Okay, just look at, that's marble made by a chisel and a big soft hammer. Okay, that is marble, the size of probably 2 amount of refrigerators put together. Imagine that. Incredible. If he would have done that, he could have gone fishing the rest of his life, in my regards.
Are you saying this is like from top to bottom?
Yeah,
Like
that's one
6
piece.
feet- 6 feet tall?
It's even bigger than that. Yeah, bigger than that. So we're going to go piece by piece. Just look at the veins, look at the ribs, look at Mary's hand underneath her son. Look at that, all right? I've looked at that for 60 years. I never get tired of looking at it. It's brilliant, just brilliant. Okay, so one of the things we're going to also learn is if I sat and laid like Christ on one of your laps, you'd smack me first and then say, "You're way too heavy, get off me," right? So Michelangelo has her son sitting on her lap. And we don't notice it, and the reason why we don't notice it is look at the drapery from her dress or clothing. It's almost as wide as her son. And by doing that, when we look at it, we say, hey, yeah, he can lie comfortably on her because that weight is supporting. Okay? If he did it less than the body of Christ, it wouldn't look right. You would say, wait a minute, that looks totally uncomfortable. But the whole piece looks at peace. Now, he's 21. He brings it to the Vatican pays him. This went on all the time. And he went and said, well, I got to put my name on it because I'm 21. And I want to get commissions from other people. So if you guys come and see it, and then say, oh, who's this Michelangelo? I need something for my garden. Okay, he's 21. What does a 21-year-old want? Fame and fortune. Okay? And so the Vatican says, oh no, God gave you the gift, this is the Vatican now. Nobody puts their name on their work. And he freaks out. He's 21. That night he comes back after 12, and we know all this because it was a man named Giorgio Vasari who wrote the Lives of the Artists, contemporary of Michelangelo. And he said Michelangelo went back, took his chisel, and look at the sash across Mary. That's his name. And you notice that Michelangelo is pretty legible. If you notice, Boronetti is not as legible. And the reason why is he starts to panic because he thinks he stayed too long and someone's going to discover him. But he made sure his name was on it. Okay? The next day, even Vasari says, somebody must have noticed the marble dust on the floor, but nobody said anything. Okay? Because look what they got. Okay? So that's the Pieta. So if you want to keep it, fine. If not, just pass it, put it on a chair and I'll collect it after. All right. All right. Michelangelo and Da Vinci did not get along. They asked Da Vinci one time, and they said, what do you think of Michelangelo? He said, oh, he's nothing but the son of a baker. That's because Michelangelo always had marble dust on his clothing. So they did not get along. We'll get to Da Vinci after we go through Michelangelo. And once I see gray smoke coming out of your ears, I stop. All right? It's a lot. Yeah, just put it on a chair. We'll get it later. This is Moses. I'll tell you a quick personal story. I had a friend who had a doctorate many years ago. She knew I was going to Rome. she said, Mike, I know you love Michelangelo. I go, yeah. She goes, go to such and such church. You'll see him there. So you'll see Moses. I said, all right. So me and my friend Pete walked and walked. Went up a hill, went to a small church. Dirty church on the outside, really needed a washing. And a small iron gate with a little lock on it. Okay, I'm used to security guards, police, Ticketron, New York City. Anyway, we're sitting there. I said, let's just sit. This is what my friend said. So a pastor shows up, and I look at him, I go, Moses? And he can't talk English, he goes, Moses. So he unlocks this little thing, right? And we walk in, and we walk into a church about as big as this. Not too much bigger. And I go, Pete, you take that side, I'll take this side. And we can't find it after a couple of minutes. I go, how can we miss it, man? It's huge. And then all of a sudden I see a white head looking at me from behind a stanchion. And I go, Pete, and I walk up, and this is a long time ago, there was a piece of string attached to 2 poles. And here is Moses. A piece of string, 2 poles, no security, nobody. Okay? I was from here to here with Moses. Also, one piece. He went to Carrara, which was the marble quarry that he loved. Now, we could call up Sears and get it delivered within a couple of hours. Michelangelo had to go. It probably took him 1 to 3 months just to bring that marble back so he could work on it. Okay? And then he did a chisel and a big soft mallet. Crazy, right? Just crazy. So, a couple of things about Moses. Look at the hair and everything. Look at the beard, man. It's incredible. This is marble, man. The other thing I want you to notice is the Pieta and Moses are shined to perfection. How smooth they are, right? That's important because it's going to come in later. So, a couple of things now. Moses is big and strong. Michelangelo did the same thing. We're not going to talk too much about the Sistine ceiling today. But he knew that he was showing people involved in the Bible. And he wanted them to look beyond us. Okay? So he made them strong. Even the women in Michelangelo's Sistine ceiling have muscles. They look like, Norman Rockwell did a play on it, they look like Rosie the Riveter. If you've ever seen Rosie the Riveter, that's modeled on a Sistine ceiling. Sybil from Michelangelo. Okay, so Moses is looking, and very, very subtly, look all the way down, and notice his foot is bending. You see the toes bending? Okay, it's not in your face, but the toes are bending. Moses has been to the mountain, and he's coming down with the 10 Commandments. He comes down to see that there's a pagan festival going on by the Jews after everything they've been through. And Moses is not happy. So he's looking at them, and he's ready to get up and give them what for. That is the nature of the statue. Okay? Now, the other thing about Michelangelo is wherever he was commissioned to put a statue, we'll take Moses, he would go to that church and spend hours and days from sunrise to sunset because he wanted to use the light to accentuate his carving. And the more he could do that, the more it would look like Moses is going to get up and shake your hand. The more lifelike it'll be. Every time he did this, when he brought it, they gave him his check. Once they gave the check, it's the churches, they said, no, we can't put it in there with the window, with the light. It's off. We got to have people see it. And they would move it. Pretty much every time he did it. Because it was incredible. You know, these pieces. So, of course, he got frustrated by that, but my attitude was that should be your only problem. Okay? All right. Let's see. And, you know, oh, and then let me do one more point. If you look at the top of the head of Moses, you notice there's the cones. For a long, long time, Michelangelo was accused of anti-Semitism because he put what people thought were horns on Moses. And they never were. He was a scholar and he used the Vulgate Bible. And unfortunately, he mistranslated. And what the cones represented is really the voice of God talking to Moses. And that's the real story behind it. Okay? All right. All right, you can put that down. And I want to talk about one more piece with Michelangelo. And you guys Google and look for more, but for today's purpose, I want to jump around with my own personal dialogue here. So, all right. So why do I give out this? Now we're going later on in his life. Remember I said 21, he was just consumed with fame and fortune. He's older now. He's experienced life. Okay. I had a teacher who became a friend. We used to listen to the Red Sox Yankee games at the college. Put the antenna out before class started. And he told me a brilliant thing about art. He said, Mike, how many times have you seen Starry Night? I said, I don't know. I've seen it since I was 10. And I was in my 30s when I met him. So he says, yeah. Every 10 years that painting changed. And I said, what do you mean, Bruce? He goes, you brought another 10 years of living to it. Okay, brilliant statement about art on any medium. So the reason why I gave you this, anybody notice a difference right away between this and the two statues we looked at?
Not polished.
It's not polished. It's rough. Okay? And guess what the metaphor with that is? When you're 21, you live forever, and life is this. He's older now. He's experienced a little bit of life. Life is up and down. How you get off the mat and move on. So it's not smooth. It is rough. And so he leaves many of his statues unsmooth. Some of his greatest work are the slaves that look like they're coming out of the marble. They're not complete. Because he starts to mature as an artist. Even though he could have stopped and those two were enough, he was constantly evolving. He was a brilliant, brilliant man. All these, Da Vinci and him, all these people I'm showing you now are very well read. Really well read. Okay? So that's why I gave you that. He also did poetry, and if you've seen the size of his book of poems, it's about that thick. So, Renaissance. You know, he really was. Okay?
What's this one called?
I don't know.
Oh.
Think I know everything now?
I do.
Yeah? Hey, Jim Carrey said it, behind every great man there's a woman rolling her eyes. Okay, now, because of Michelangelo, we don't hear as much about the following sculptor. His name is Bernini. And Bernini is one of the few that can hold a candle with Michelangelo. He comes later. He comes in what we call the Baroque period. But I wanted you to see this artist and just show you what he learned from Michelangelo. Okay? Now, the names are there, so you don't have to ask me what's the name of it. I think, right? You got it. Hey, if I don't talk to you, that means I'm ill. You know what I mean? Look at David with the slingshot. Everybody see that? You know what the most miraculous part of David is? Remember, this is marble. I cannot overemphasize, with a chisel and a mallet. The most miraculous thing about this is look at David's mouth. How many times have we all went to throw something and we purse our lips? Look at that. Also, it's pretty much freestanding. You get the motion and the power of David. Just brilliant, brilliant. I'm not going to go into too much, but Bernini fell out of favor with everyone because he went crazy. Someone was having an affair with his wife, and it turned out to be his brother. And he made, I don't want to get into it, but he didn't treat his wife really well. He hired someone to do kind of a mugging on her and almost beat his brother in public to death. So he fell out of favor, and the way he came back into favor is look at the nun and the angel. Look how beautiful that is. Very, very theatrical. Very theatrical. I mean, again, that's marble. It's incredible. It's just incredible. Anyway, he came back into favor and continued his career. Now, to show you how things go, every single one of you, your entire family, children, grandchildren, made contact with the Baroque period. Okay? Every single one of you. Okay? And what do I mean by that? Bernini did the horse, of course, and the other one is a carousel horse. And when I put together these programs over the years, I've always said that I come down a highway, which is Da Vinci and Michelangelo, and then I always have country roads. And this is a country road. Carousel horses come right out of the Baroque, okay, the 15th century. The immigrants came from Europe. They had carousels pretty much early on. Maybe in the 16th century they started. Definitely the 17th. They came here. I'll just talk about settling in New York. And what did they do? They were craftsmen. And so they did the stained glass windows in their local churches. They did some of the statues. But they weren't doing it for money, of course. And then one guy, we don't know his name, maybe it was a bunch of them, said, you know what? Why don't we try to see if Americans or this new country of ours likes carousels? And they started to make carousel horses in factories. And it blossomed in other cities. And that's how we get the carousels. So the next time when you see a carousel horse, it goes all the way back to the Baroque.
3 days.
Okay? All right. All right, let's go to Da Vinci. All right.
Take care.
It's nice to get handouts, right? You know why I also don't do PowerPoints? I learned early on when I went to seminars. They shut the lights and they did PowerPoints and you had to read and look. A third of the group was in the bathroom. Maybe more than a third was sleeping. And the other third, yeah, all right, when's this over? All right. Okay, so this is Da Vinci. So we read Norman Rockwell's painting. This is his painting. You don't need the colors as much today. I'm just talking about certain things. So tell me who's in the picture.
Well, her mother, but Mary.
Yeah, Mary. Who else?
Anyone.
John the Baptist.
How do you know it's John the Baptist?
I have to get an old man there. That baby is up.
Okay, so I'm only asking. I want you to. This baby is John the Baptist. Anytime you see a baby, an adolescent, and an adult holding the staff of the cross. That's John the Baptist. Okay? Not just with Da Vinci. Da Vinci was the man. His name was all over Europe. And it's going to come into play when I show you the next piece. Okay? Opposite is who?
Babysitter.
Who's the baby?
Oh, Jesus.
Jesus. And Jesus is blessing John the Baptist. Because Jesus is just coming in the form of a baby. He's not a baby human. Right? He's aware. He's totally aware. Then next to them is this young angel. You see the wings? Okay, what's the most remarkable thing about the angel? This is Da Vinci now. The angel is on the ground. Prior to Da Vinci, everything was different. The Renaissance did this, and Michelangelo understood it too. The Renaissance meant that the Holy Family becomes the family. And what they wanted is for us, just like Christ said, is no separation. You don't see the nimbus. Remember those gold nimbuses they would put around the Holy Family? There's no separation. Not only did they want you to get closer to the family, they wanted, what is Mary? What would we give her? She has a child. So who is she? What is she? What title do we give her? What is she to Jesus? His mother. And that is what Da Vinci and Michelangelo wanted to get back. That she is a mother. And to make the human drama connect to us. Okay? All right. So, Mary puts her hand out. She's got two naked babies hanging out with her. If you have two naked babies hanging out with you, are you smiling, having a good time? Right? You're having a good time. You can't help it. Two naked babies, right? Mary doesn't look happy. Okay? She doesn't look happy. Now, look at her hand. Her hand is above Christ. Okay? Now, if I go to a naked baby, I'm going to pat their head like that, right? Real gentle. Real gentle. Look at Mary's hand. It doesn't look gentle. Okay? Actually, Da Vinci wants you to look at, understand, it's like the claw of a bird.
Protection.
Not so much protection. And she's not happy. What does she know about her son? This is the essential thing in all the great artists from the Renaissance on. What is the essential thing that Mary knows?
She knows he's going to give up his life.
He's going to give up his life at a young age. Mother and son. Okay? Take away Mary and Christ and just mother and son. As a mother, she knows her boy is going to be plucked from her at a young age. Okay? That is what Da Vinci is stressing. After Da Vinci, you'll start to see the great artist. You'll never see Mary smiling with Christ in the great art. Okay? All right. And now, how we doing? We're good. All right. All right, now we get to, everybody knows this one. The Last Supper. Okay, Da Vinci, if you've seen Harry Potter, or if you've seen Lord of the Rings, that's what Da Vinci looks like, Gandalf. He knew how to schmooze. He was always looking great, okay? Wasn't too heavy into completion. If he was a plumber, he would have took your sink apart and said, I'll see you in 2 months, there's another job down the road, I'll be back, okay? But the Last Supper becomes different. I'm going to hold it. So he gets a commission to come to Milan and to come to this monastery. Now, a couple of things. So we come into play. I'm not going to talk about perspective, because that's all I ever heard from all the art colleges I ever went to, and I don't give a hoot. Okay? And then I'll show you this other famous painting where I don't give a hoot what they talk about. I don't care about perspective or anything. It's the least of the whole thing. Okay? The least. Okay. So he gets a commission. 2 things in his life, though. At a very young, not young age, but let's say in his 20s, he was accused of homosexuality. Homosexuality back then was a death sentence. And the way Roman law was this, real easy. They would have a box outside the police station. Whether or not she took an apple from my fruit stand, I didn't like her. So I wrote, this lady took an apple, put it in the box, and they arrested her. Okay? Somebody put that in a box and said, Da Vinci practices sodomy. Okay? He was put on trial. Okay? He was acquitted. Now, evidence leads to, most likely, Da Vinci was gay. I personally am doing arts. I don't care if Walt Whitman's gay. I don't care if Bob Dylan's gay. I don't, give a rat's, right? Okay. So it comes into play later. The other thing that Da Vinci didn't like, and Michelangelo, and that's the Sistine ceiling is for another day, is they did not like the church, not all of them, practicing usury. And if you don't know, I learned it. If this lady comes to me and wants to start a candy store in Rome, it costs $2, I give her 2, and as a pastor I say, yours, $20. Okay? Not all the pastors, but a good portion did that. Okay? Da Vinci did not like that. Okay? He did not like a lot of things, also a scholar. So, with that in mind, he's in Milan, and he gets a wall. And they show him the wall, and they said, Mr. Da Vinci, they know he's, please, whatever you want to do, you could do. All right? So, he doesn't start it down here. He starts it here. He contemplated it for days, they say. And there was one monk who used to come in. He was like an assistant to the head guy. And he would run back to the head guy and say, look, Da Vinci's not doing anything, man. He's just looking at a blank wall. And his boss would say, leave him alone. That's Da Vinci, man. So he had to bite his tongue. Finally, he works. This is the problem. And it may not be. I've differed my opinion on it. Okay? Da Vinci does a fresco unlike anybody else. Instead of doing 1, 2, and 3, he did a fresco 1, 3, and 2 because he was like Aaron Rodgers. He thought he was the smartest person in the room at all times. Okay? Now, you could take it 2 ways. He did it on purpose, as I'll talk about later, or he was so full of himself because Michelangelo was not a fresco painter. He freaked out when they gave him that commission for the ceiling. And he said, if you look at the first half of the Sistine ceiling, that's my first 2 years. He says, it's okay. But if you look at the next 2 years, he said, it's almost perfect. Because he had learned the craft of fresco. Okay? So it's not easy. If you don't know what it is, it's this. I wet this area, only this area, and I come back and apply paint. Okay? If I go beyond where I watered, it's not going to work. It's going to dry. Most likely, the Last Supper will be gone. Probably in the next 25 years. They've tried to restore it, but thank God the restorers said, we're stopping. Because if we continue to restore it, it becomes our work, not Da Vinci's. Okay? So it's actually going to disappear. Okay? The humidity, the type of area it is. They have it sealed in, but it's going to go. But I have another theory about that I'll talk about after. So, he finally completes it. Okay. Some people said, I don't know everybody. You can Google, they'll give you all the names of everybody here. But I'll point out certain things. If you look, you might see close to Jesus, one of the disciples putting his hand out to a bag of coins. Take a second. You see it? That's Judas. Okay? Now, supposedly Da Vinci got the last laugh because the face of Judas is the face of that monk who kept hassling him. All right?
Is it to the left?
He's right there, putting his hand out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, don't worry, you can hold on to it.
Okay.
Then, if we go further down, and I don't know right, left, right, but go all the way down, there is Da Vinci.
Oh, the second.
That's him with the white beard, the white long hair at the end of the table. Everybody see that? He's the only one not looking at Christ, right? It's not that bothered. You know who he's looking at? Plato. Because what the Renaissance is bringing now is science and the church. It's the beginning of that. Remember, not too long after, guess who's coming up from Germany? Martin Luther. The Reformation is coming. And Michelangelo and Da Vinci knew all that. Okay? All right. Now,
What year was this done?
oh, I don't know.
Okay.
Don't worry. Renaissance, you look it up. I'm not worried about dates that much, okay? Don't worry about it. It's timeless anyway. So, we get the Last Supper. Now I invite the people of Milan to come. And all of you come in, and we get an idea. The reason why he started it here, because just picture the same picture all along here. It's like a dais. We've all been to weddings, bar mitzvahs, big celebrations, conferences, and the people are at a dais overlooking you, right? But this lady says out loud, and she says, "Hey, I got those same dishes at home." And then she looked, "Yeah, I got the same dishes, the forks, the spoons, okay?" So she's right. In the 15th century, he's got 15th century cutlery on the table. He doesn't have cutlery from the time of Christ. What's going on here? What is Da Vinci doing? Okay, and this is what he's doing. He's making Christ present in your time. Okay, he's timeless. Okay, and if the further emphasis is the cutlery. Okay, he respected people. He wanted people to get it. Okay, I don't want you walking away without getting it. Okay, now the Last Supper. We're going to move along. The Last Supper is in a big room in the monastery. And I'm going to tell you, all the monks that live in the monastery are going to see the Last Supper 3 times a day, every day of the year. What room is it?
The refectory.
What?
The refectory.
The dining room.
The dining room.
That's the refectory.
Okay, I'm not that smart. Okay? I only know this stuff and how to work with people at Scotland. That's about it. It's the dining room. Remember I spoke to you about he was put on trial, usury, church members being hypocritical. The monks, some of them, not all of them, but some of them are not following. So what he did, he's got Christ and all of his disciples. And it's the moment when he tells his disciple, one of you are going to betray me. Okay? Every time you came as a monk in that monastery, and you sat at that table and ate your soup and your bread, In between that, you had to look up. And Da Vinci was telling you, Christ is watching you. You doing right by him, or you're corrupting his words? And that's the real message of the Last Supper. Okay? Now, people hear about it. The artists, the great artists. Remember, there's no TV, no cameras, nothing. They come traveling from all over. Because the whisperings are going, hey, go see Da Vinci's latest work. It's in Milan. You got to see it. And we think he painted wrong. It's not going to last. So, I think Da Vinci almost did it on purpose because he wanted the art world to come and see it, thinking it's not going to last. Okay? Where before I always said, why would he do this? A brilliant man like this, why would he do a fresco so completely wrong? Okay? So, that's the Last Supper. Okay? So let's talk about this lady. I see a little bit of gray smoke, but I'll take a chance. And then I'll just tell Ann, you know, there's a bunch of seniors out there with their heads exploding. You better go take care of it. The Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa. So Da Vinci is rated probably as the #1 artist in the world, and we really only know maybe 20 paintings. Pretty incredible, right? Mona Lisa. Okay. Why is she famous? Anybody know? The eyes. Okay, let me tell you a story that nobody tells you. Because they want to keep it, the eyes. What's the #1 question you always heard? Why is she smiling? Okay, that's like perspective to me.
Yes, who is it?
What?
Do they have-
Lisa Gioconda. She's the wife of a wealthy merchant. Okay? And he wanted the great Da Vinci to paint a picture of her. Okay? So she sat for Da Vinci. But let's move on with that. Let's talk about the famous Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa was in an unframed picture in the Louvre. Anybody know how the Louvre came to be? Napoleon Bonaparte and Josephine. And basically, I'll tell you in Brooklynese. Napoleon woke up in the morning, almost stepped through a painting, and said, Josephine, we got to do something. Because everywhere he conquered, he took all their art. Okay? God bless Napoleon. He took all their art. He said, we got to put it somewhere. We can't keep holding it in the bedroom here. What's that building over there? She goes, well, it's like a government. Okay, now we're going to put our work there. And that's the Louvre. Okay? So the Louvre is full of stolen work. All right? There's 200 paintings here. One of the 200 paintings is the Mona Lisa. Probably the smallest, just hung on a wall. Okay? Just among the other 200. Not famous, nothing. Okay? A man comes into the museum and slashes one of the paintings. And the administration of the Louvre says, we can't have this. So they said, we got to put glass on all our paintings. But they have no glass craftsmen in France. So they call up Italy, and Italy sends them craftsmen of glass. And each craftsman gets a different area. And one of the craftsmen from Italy gets this particular room with 200 paintings. And as he's putting the glass on the paintings, he's getting madder by the minute. Because he realizes, hey, all these paintings have been stolen from my country. And I'm putting glass on them. What kind of, you know? So he's fed up, and it's probably more to do with money. We'll give him that. And what happens is, he walks over, and he cuts out, he takes the frame off the wall. Monday, nobody's there except the craftsman. No crowds, nothing. And he cuts out Mona Lisa, rolls it up, and runs, and leaves the frame and everything on the stairs. During that time, Mona Lisa painting becomes famous on headlines. Where is the painting? Where did you go? And all this. Okay, that is where Mona Lisa becomes famous. Okay? Anyway, they finally get it back in pretty good condition. I won't go into it. You can, again, Google the story, you know. But that's not what we're aiming for right now. So, they get back the Mona Lisa. And again, this is my own personal dialogue, okay? But after years and years, a couple of things started. Da Vinci knew he couldn't sculpture like Michelangelo, okay? He couldn't do it, okay? Think of Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers, okay? Same competition, okay? So he says, I am going to make painting, instead of just two-dimensional, three-dimensional, to compete with sculpture. You get that? You know, he's mad because everything else, he's pretty at the top. No matter what the science is or anything we know from his books. But the thing you don't hear about Da Vinci is if this woman is considered the genius of gardening and horticulture, Da Vinci comes, learns as much as he can from her, because he's inquisitive, and then maybe gives another twist to it, so he becomes a genius of all kinds of disciplines. But he's always conferring with that other person who's at the top of the list in that particular field. But the Renaissance man knows everything, right? So we get Mona Lisa, okay? Now, we get the picture back, and what we find out is the Mona Lisa is the one painting that belongs on the wall because it is owned by the French people. All the rest, if he would have stolen, you could have a case for. You know, it was stolen art. And the reason for that is this. 15 years prior to his death, the King of France comes and says to Da Vinci, look, if you come to France, money, housing, supplies, everything you'll need is yours. Love Da Vinci's work. And Da Vinci says, yeah, I don't have that strong of a tie to Italy. After all, they were willing to put me on trial, right? You don't forget, you take it down to the personal. We get taught about these people as if they're here. They're not here, okay? They're right with us, man. They get pains and families and squabbles, the same type of stuff. So he says, yeah, I'm coming with you. The one painting he takes is this. And on his deathbed, he gives it to the King of France. So the one painting this guy stole actually belongs in France. Now, my next question is, and I said it to myself years ago, why did he take this painting? He kept with him up until his death and gives it to the king. Leonardo da Vinci was a bastard. Most likely the housekeeper, in quotes, really the slave, she might have been about 14 or 15, was his mother. She might have lived close or she might have lived far, but most people say she might have been within the village miles. His father marries and has a separate family. He keeps Da Vinci. Okay? So Da Vinci knows. Okay. So, if you start to, like me, you know, going down a rabbit hole, it's really not going down a rabbit hole. I personally feel, looking back, my education was the tip of the iceberg. And so by looking back, I start to find out things that never came into play that might have, why did he keep this painting? Okay? If I'm 20, I don't even think about that. I'm more too busy worrying, well, how can I paint like him and all that. But when you hit your 40s and your 50s, what's the deal with this? Okay? And this to me is what's the deal. There are some who say that it was Da Vinci's self-portrait, right? And it got me to thinking right away. It's not his self-portrait, okay? He kept it for 15 years. Maybe retouched it little by little, okay? I remember sitting in the living room, and my two kids, I forget, 10 and 5, the girl was 10, and they're looking at a picture of my father. And the 5-year-old says, "Oh, look at Dad, he still dresses the same way." And my daughter says, "No, Josh, that's Poppy." They never met him. "That's Poppy." So I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "It's not a self-portrait." I said, "This is his mother." Okay? I gave a lecture like this, I don't know, 2-3 years ago. And, you know, some people say, "Oh, Mike's really, you know," like, because my bucket list is 2 things. I want to see Bigfoot, and I want to see him abducted by a UFO. And that's it. I'll be happy. It's nothing to do with Grand Canyon, anything else. Okay? This is his mother. And once I said, this is his mother, that's why he would keep this for 15 years. He never gave it to the Giacondo family. He kept it. Okay? One of the residents, daughter and son-in-law were there, and after the lecture, Sharon came up and said, I said, what do you think of the, I said, I'm not scared about saying it, but I'm just wondering. She goes, "No." I said to Bob, I said, "Michael is right on." She goes, "Mike, we are very good friends and we've been there." She goes, "The skin tone of this woman is North African. His mother was from North Africa." So my feeling is, that's his mom. That's why he kept it, okay? Forget about the smile and all that other stuff, okay? All right, so let's almost finish up. All right, let's... So I told you Michelangelo is my favorite. My second favorite artist is a painter named Michelangelo Caravaggio. Okay, he's the legacy of Da Vinci and Michelangelo. And if you want, just Google and have fun looking at it. I think he's the greatest painter. It's not very well known, you know, it's only in the last 20, 25 years where he gets his due, but he's still very, very underrated. Beautiful, beautiful artist. This is the picture that you're holding. Okay, so I don't know when Caravaggio found time to paint, because he broke 11 of the 10 commandments. Hung out with the prostitutes, which are given a bad name because a single woman was very limited in what she could do economically. Okay? But be that as it may, he hung out in taverns, bars, dives, pickpockets, you name it, the fringe of society. He walked around dressed like Romeo from Romeo and Juliet, always had a long sword, got charged for murder when he was protecting one of the prostitutes from one of the police bullies. He was always on the run. He died about 35 years old. Okay? I think he's the greatest painter for me. The first thing I want to tell you is that he never used a pencil. He went right to paint. He went right to paint. Can you imagine? No pencil, no drawing, no planning. Went right to paint. The crowds loved him. When he was put in jail for anything, the Vatican would call up, "Hey, you got Caravaggio?" "Yeah, the Pope wants him out. He's got to finish a painting for this church." When his paintings were being hung in a church, it was like Star Wars, pre-made. Lines were long. So the church knew Caravaggio brought the people in. So they didn't care what he was doing, outside, of course, of killing someone. But he was in and out, he was protected by the church. Okay? Awesome. Awesome artist. Okay. So, We're going to close with a Rockwell, but I want you, remember we looked in the beginning, Amazing Grace? So, let's look at this picture by Caravaggio. First of all, if you notice, the influence of Da Vinci is look up, it's Mary and the Christ child, okay? Look at the thin halo now. No longer are the great painters putting a nimbus, and eventually it disappears. You don't see it anymore, because that's what they're learning now from the masters, Michelangelo and Da Vinci, okay? Look at the lighting. Remember, this is not bulbs. This is candles. Candles, okay? And look out, Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, all these great directors, guess what they did? They looked at Caravaggio's paintings. And if you look at some of their early films, you can see the lighting technique is exactly what they learned from Caravaggio. Okay, art is the only area where we divide it up. If we talk about our families at a picnic, and if we talk about crazy auntie, and we say, oh yeah, that little baby's going to grow up just like auntie. Everybody's connected. But when we learn art, they stupidly go abstract, impressionist, Baroque. It's all the same. It's all the same family, okay? She's in an alleyway. It's not a church. This is Mary and the Christ child. Where does Caravaggio put her? Just in an ordinary street in Rome. Most likely it was his girlfriend, who also might have been a prostitute. Okay? So this is right down with the people. Okay? And the people who are us can totally relate. Okay? Let's go further down and look at the couple. They're pilgrims, right? They came to see the Christ child. Okay? That's the story. They got their staffs, their walking staffs, right? And probably the first thing you notice is Caravaggio's got the guy's rump right in our eyes, right? Okay. If I do this and you look, okay, fine. But if I turn my back, you go all the way to the wall. Okay? That's all human beings. It has nothing to do with art. It's just the way we take vision. If you notice, the husband's back is to us. So automatically, what he's doing in Caravaggio is putting us in the alleyway. Okay? We are right there watching these people. Okay? And remember I said, look at the foot of Moses, probably one of the most essential things. What I want you to do is look at the soles of the feet of the husband. Filthy. Just like that table in the restaurant was filthy. And what did Christ always say? Come as you are. Come as you are. So even though Caravaggio was breaking 11 of the 10 commandments, he knew that he should be a better person, and he couldn't. But his paintings revealed the better person in him. Okay? Awesome, awesome artist. Okay? So that's about 16th century. It's the Baroque. You look up Baroque. At the same time Caravaggio's painting, Bernini is doing sculpture. Okay. All right, our last picture for the day. Let's go all the way back to Rockwell and do a complete circle. And probably my favorite, well, definitely in the top 3, but one of my favorite all-time pieces of art by Rockwell. Okay, and just to tell you with titles, the most important thing in my belief through the years is really what to look at is not titles, but the date. 1954. And the reason I say that is it takes 5 to 10 years, maybe longer. You know how you put a seed in a pot and you water it? and the flower comes up, it's the same way for the great art. The seed might have been planted in the 1940s. He himself had boys growing up. Okay? All right, so who's in the picture?
Dad and his son.
Dad and his son, all right? And they're sitting on probably the old jalopy, right? All right, let's go from there now. Let's take in the boy. Okay? How is the boy dressed? Spiffy, right? And he's very straight up. He looks in good physical shape, right? He's right in the prime of life. And he's looking. What is he looking for? The future? Good. Somewhere else. But it's a specific somewhere else. Rockwell's giving you the clues.
Going off to school.
He's going off to school. He's going to State University, right? And it is on the suitcase. And there's the dog, right? Okay, let's look at the father. What can we say about the father? He looks sad, but has he lived a life?
Yes.
Has he worked hard?
Yes.
Okay, where's he looking?
Past.
Not the dog, not the past.
No.
He's looking probably to go back to the farm, right? He's got other kids maybe, but that's his life, is back at the farm or wherever he's working in the town. So Rockwell does that, okay? Now, to me, the most essential part of this painting, I'll tell you a quick personal story, because if I'm 20 and looking at this, I probably wouldn't get it from 17 to 20, but I got it a little bit after 20. My parents had moved down to Florida, and I went to visit them. I lived in New York City, and I went to visit them, and I walk into the condo. I hadn't seen them in 3 to 6 months, you know, and I said, "Where's Dad?" My mother says, "Oh, he's by the pool." And if you've ever read Death of a Salesman, my father was Willie Loman, unfortunately. Anyway, I get to the pool, and I hadn't seen him in 3 to 6 months. And he looks at me, and I'm pretty much dressed like this, maybe some shoes instead of sneakers. And he says, "Go back to the condo." This is what he said first thing. "Go back to the condo, and you know my shoe shine box? Get it." So I go, "What am I supposed to do? It's my dad, right?" Okay. He had an old shoe shine box with the wax, the brush, that whole thing, right? So I go, and I come back, give it to him. He says, "Sit down." I sit down opposite him. He says, "Give me your shoes." And he starts to shine them. And probably 5-10 minutes into doing that, and we're not talking that much, and he looks up at me and says, "I don't do this for everybody." And unfortunately, his dad died when he was 4. So he had a tough time raising a boy. But it's fathers and sons. And the generation that came after mine is much, much better at nurturing their family. Prior to that, my father and the generations before him, they stunk. And that's because nobody mentored them. The important thing was work. Taking care of, like my father said, putting a roof and feeding you. Okay? But he said, "I don't do this for everybody." We go back to Rockwell's painting now. Look at the father. How many hats is he holding? He's holding 2 hats. Does he wear 2 hats? No. His son wears a hat. And the father, they didn't know how to say "I loved you." They didn't know how to hug. But by holding the son's hat, he hopefully was telling his boy, "I love you and I'm proud of you." There's a reason why we talk about certain art. That's why West Side Story, Beethoven, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Rockwell, because there's a lot going on more than just their work. It's reflecting us. And I always tell people the beauty of Rockwell and all Da Vinci and Michelangelo is it's not about ordinary people. That's how we were brought up and taught. What should have been is extraordinary, ordinary people. Okay? And no one else is going to tell you this in Oregon, Wisconsin, at the end of a program. Scream. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.